Hi everyone, it's Josh from JDG. In this video I'm covering something very important for landlords under the upcoming reforms, and this is the grounds for possession under Section 8. We'll look at how the grounds are split into mandatory and discretionary and highlight the ones that will most likely rely on most frequently with a quick look at the others so you know what's out there. So what are the grounds? Well, when you need to regain possession of your property, you're no longer be able to rely on that no-fault Section 21 notice. That route's been abolished. Instead, you'll need to use one or more of the defined grounds under Section 8. These grounds are legal reasons for possession. Once you serve a valid notice and meet the required conditions, you can then apply to court to get possession of your property back. So mandatory versus discretionary, what is the difference? Mandatory grounds are those where, if you can prove the ground applies and you meet the requirements, the court must grant you a possession order. They have to give you that order to get your property back. Discretionary grounds, however, are those where the court may grant a possession order. It has to be satisfied that the ground applies and it's reasonable in the circumstances to make the possession order. In practice, you'll want to rely first on a mandatory ground wherever possible. It gives you much stronger security and chance of getting possession, but you must ensure the criteria are met, the notice period, the type of tenancy, evidence and things like that. If you only rely upon a discretionary ground, you're going to take more risk because the court has more scope to refuse or delay your request, but you will still be liable for all those court costs whether you get possession or not. Here are the most likely grounds that we're likely to see. So ground number 8, serious rent arrears. That's a mandatory ground, and this is where tenants have 3 months or more, up from the previous 2 months of arrears, and they've not paid any of their rent. This is a 4-week notice. Grounds 10 and 11, that's if they have other rent arrears less than the 3-month threshold, or they have persistent rent arrears. This is a discretionary ground. This is where rent is owed but perhaps not the higher threshold, or they're repeatedly getting into arrears every month but still stay below that 3 months. This is also a 4-week notice. Ground 7A, antisocial behaviour and criminal behaviour. This is a mandatory ground. If the tenant or someone living with them is involved in serious antisocial behaviour or criminal behaviour, and this can be proved, such as through a police report or something like that, proceedings can actually be brought immediately via courts. You don't have to give an advance notice of that. Ground number 12 is a breach of a tenancy agreement. Now this one's discretionary. So for example, the tenant breaches a non-rent term, like they have pets when they're not allowed, subletting, or they're not allowing access, things like that. Now a judge would have to make a decision on whether kicking them out of the house is a fair reaction to that breach. That's why it's a discretionary ground. But this ground is actually only a 2-week notice. And finally, in this section, ground 1 or 1A, landlord or family wants to move back in, or the property needs to be sold. This is a mandatory ground as well. Under the new regime, there is a mandatory ground where the landlord intends to sell or move in themselves, and this one can't actually be served any earlier than 12 months into the tenancy. And if it's served and the tenant leaves, it can't be let again for 12 months. This is just so people don't use it to try and get people out and then get a new tenant straight in. And this one is actually a 4-month notice, so it definitely involves a bit of forward planning if you're looking to sell or move in. There are other grounds as well. A quick mention, some such as, I don't know, that you can have a tenant that doesn't have a right to rent, property needs redevelopment, student lets, false statements by tenants, deterioration of property, agricultural lets, people moving in or having to move out once their employment's finished. There's a whole host of other ones. They're important to know that they're there, but most likely wouldn't be used on a regular basis, particularly in our sector that we work in here at JDG. So we are training our team at the moment to know what possession grounds there are, what route might be needed, and we can then check that we have the right evidence available, we're following the correct timings and dates and when things need to be sent to tenants, because obviously any mistakes can lead to a much longer delay in actually getting possession of your property back or further lost rent. We're also going to be advising on technical points such as the periods and just making sure you put them in at the correct time to make sure you're not breaching any of the other rules that are in place as well. For you as a landlord, this means you can stay confident that if the worst happens, you can still have a clear route to possession and you're prepared. And by using us as your managing agent, we've got all the paperwork we need and get everything served for you quickly. So in summary, mandatory grounds are the strongest route. Discretionary grounds are a useful backup route, but you do have less certainty. Focus now on the common grounds you're going to use most: arrears, breaches, landlord needing to get the property back. And then you've got the other ones there just in case they were ever needed. If you'd like to schedule a one-to-one session to review your portfolio's exposure, just let me know.